Hey everybody, it's Carm here, coming you on a beautiful Tuesday afternoon. I felt like coming on and doing a little response to Fred, Bigstar1000. Fred, if you're watching, he's been doing bringing back his Gimme 10 series, which he would spotlight 10 records, which he was particularly favorable towards. It could be a genre, in this case a record label. Did one on CTI recently, and much to my pleasure this morning, he did one on ECM, and it just inspired to do my own version of this. And as he pointed out, I mean, how do you narrow it down to just 10 ECMs if you're, fans? I'm thinking of Gary, a good pal in New Jersey, Cosmic Pickle, a greater ECM fanatic than myself even, and of course, trying to narrow that down. But these are just 10 that I picked for, what I'm kind of feeling right now, and you could do variations on this for, weeks on end and come up with something a little different. But these are just the ones that I picked. And if you excuse the condition on some of these, many of these I've had for at least 20 years and in pretty rough shape when I first picked them up. So yeah, starting right in, Rainier Bruninghaus, Freight Weight. Of course, a longtime collaborator with Eberhard Weber and Jan Gabarek, a great keyboardist and composer, and didn't make very many albums. I think he only made 2 on the label and one with Manfred Schoof, trumpet flugelhorn. And on here he's joined by Kenny Wheeler, flugelhorn, John Christensen on drums, also Gary's favorite drummer, and Brynjar Hoff on oboe and English horn. Yeah, beautiful, like so much ECM, very impressionistic, atmospheric, also at times pretty solid. I think John Christensen's role is to kind of keep the music a little more rooted. I noticed in thinking about the mix before, the kick drum on here is very prominently out front, which, since there's no bass on the album, I think that kind of gives it the low end and the root, whereas the rest of the album is kind of airy and again very impressionistic and kind of floated, kind of very floating. Just a very beautiful album. Lots of synthesizer as well as piano, and I've been a long-time fan of him in general. Would love to hear him do more solo work, especially this sort of thing with the mixed keyboards and the instrumentation. Yeah, beautiful stuff from August of 1980, so 35 years. A little bit more of a recent find, and by recent I mean about maybe 15 years ago. Eon, Richard Byrock on piano, with Frank Tusa on bass and Jeff Williams on drums. Love this album. Beautiful piano trio. Like a lot of other ECM, it's the aesthetic has the kind of light airiness to it, but it's also very rooted and very. It's free form at times, but for the most part, it's fairly straight ahead. Just has a beautiful flow to it, the tone and the approach they take. A really nice version of Miles Davis Nardis, almost 12 minutes, really stretches out, and mostly originals by Byrock. But would highly recommend if you like piano trio music. This is a slightly different take on it. Of course, that configuration, I mean, there's so many ways to go about it, but this is a really nice one, and I was really happy when I found it. This is probably one of my all-time favorites, not only of ECM, but just of music in general. Just a huge fan of this one. Hotel Hello, Steve Swallow, Gary Burton. Beautiful duet album from 1974. There's something about this one that it's the tone, it's the whole, just one of those, indescribable things. Very light, airy, impressionistic. It goes through so many moods and textures, and there's times where it's very whimsical, childlike, almost nursery rhyme melodies and rhythms between the two, and also sometimes it's very melancholy, almost brings me to tears at times. It just runs the gamut of emotions and feelings. It's a mixture of there's pieces by Steve Swallow and Carla Bley and Mike Gibbs, who was someone that Burton covered a great deal of his music. And yeah, it's mostly vibes and bass. Steve also plays piano, and Gary plays organ and marimba. Yeah, this is an album, I mean, it's hard to find words for it. It's just, to me, it's just so beautiful, and it's been such a long-time favorite. And again, in many ways, it's so simple and stripped down, but it just, I don't know, just it just hits home every time I hear it. And like many of these, it's an album which, some of these I have on CD, which I've just put on repeat over and over, and with the record, just, keep flipping it over and over. But yeah, could never get enough of this one, and just, yeah, it's just, yeah, just a very beautiful and deeply personal record to me. And again, of course, the cover. Anytime you see a sunrise or sunset, you can't resist it. Another longtime favorite, Terry Ripdahl, Odyssey. You can see how much I paid for it there, 99 cents. I've had this for about close to 20 years, 95, 96. Yeah, I know Fred showed his What Comes After. A fantastic early one. This is my personal favorite. Just a smidgen ahead of After the Rain, but you'll love the cover and the inside there. This is from August of '75. Oops, it's coming out. Yeah, 40 years ago. And to me, it's truly timeless. You have a lot of synthesizer in here, string ensemble synthesizer, organ, of course, Ripdahl's guitar. And yeah, great double record. Again, keeping with the ECM aesthetic, very atmospheric, I call it cloudy music. A lot of ECM to me is just, I think of like an overcast sky, very, kind of dark and reflective. As well as there's times where this is kind of, it goes into the more, traditional jazz rock fusion, but it also goes way up and out, and again, out into the clouds. It's just another gorgeous album, which could never get enough of from the time I first heard it up until now. I think it's been reissued in a box set with some live stuff from the period, which I still have yet to get. But yeah, for me, this is essential, not only of Ripdahl, but of mid-70s ECM. But again, just timeless. Here's one that Fred showed, and an all-time favorite, Steve Reich, Music for 18 Musicians. Yeah, Fred said it great in the video. I mean, yeah, this is just, for me, if you're just going to have one Steve Reich, I mean, this would be the one to have. I think this is recorded in '78. You can see the various lineup of musicians. I think many of which he still, probably still collaborates with. But yeah, it's very rhythmic, very textural. In some ways, kind of like the cover. At first listen, you might think it's kind of static, but there is always something going on in the music. It's progressing in such a way that you really need to listen attentively to really kind of hear. There is a really interesting narrative flow, which isn't typical of a lot of, I guess a lot of Western music in general. But it really, yeah, this is a essential album in my opinion. And yeah, again, texturally. And just the pacing of it is just really, really distinctive. And again, another way in which ECM always kind of stretches the boundaries, and goes over the line, over that line. Harold Anderson, Shimmery. I have a few of his from this period, although this one I find myself going back to quite often. Great quartet here. Harold on bass, of course, Johanni Aaltonen on reeds and flute, Lars Jansson on piano, and Pal Thalson on drums percussion, from October of '76. Another one, kind of like the cover, very autumnal, moody, atmospheric, melancholy. For me, it's Johanni Aaltonen's playing on saxophones and flute, which really stand out for me. Just very beautiful, powerful playing. And yeah, it's another album I would just flip over and over. This is one actually I hadn't listened to in a while, but I listened to it so many times I could remember it, remember how each song goes. Just another beautiful yeah, very much captures the ECM aesthetic, and there's also some nice freeform passages, which I know the saxophone in particular reminds me towards the end of I think of like Pharoah Sanders or someone. But yeah, just another one that goes through, you know, a lot of those moods and feelings. Yeah, just beautiful. Another one that Fred showed, and yeah, I'd put this in my top. I was saying to him, if not my top 5, certainly the top 10. Steve Kuhn, Trance. Yeah, totally agree. He's a very unheralded piano player, musician, composer. Should be much better known. He's joined on here by Steve Swallow on bass, Jack DeJohnette on drums, and Sue Evans on percussion. There was a period, there was a winter of, it was a few years back, where I would start my day with this album, especially the first tune, Trance, is just has this kind of very light, gradually like bouncing, lilting quality to it, with the chord progressions, just perfect for me for just starting the day. And yeah, there's some more freeform passages. There's some Latin influences. Yeah, and beautiful group interplay. Yeah, I just love. Again, another album, kind of like Hotel Hello, that just captures a certain mood and seems to, for me, just runs the gamut of emotions. But yeah, I would highly recommend this for whether you're just getting into ECM or if you've been a longtime fan of and haven't heard this one. Yeah, I'd get this on whatever format you could find it. Just yeah, just a beautiful record all around. Another one here, maybe not as obvious. Keith Jarrett, Hymns and Spheres. Of course, Fred showed the Cologne concert, which is really kind of like, I'd say, like a benchmark for solo piano music. This is all solo pipe organ. Yeah, recorded on the Carl Joseph Reap Baroque organ in Ottoburen, West Germany, from 1976. This is just an incredible, for me, again, an album that runs gamut of emotions, very atmospheric. I think I'm partial towards this in particular because I love synthesizer, and while this is pipe organ, the timbres he gets out of it sound very much like analog synthesizer. The kind of droning, shimmering quality of the early analog instruments. And he was even pointing out that he was literally pulling out all these different stops, which were getting sounds that really weren't heard before. And just the experimentation on here is just it's almost like relentless. He's constantly searching for sounds and different variations. And again, it seems to be all freely improvised. It was reissued on CD as just spheres, in which the hymns on there were cut off, which begin and end the album. I guess to fit it onto one CD. But would highly recommend this if you're, whether you're into Jarrett or not. But if you want to get into a very experimental keyboard album, would very much recommend this. And again, another ECM in which they were really kind of stretching, into a different kind of territory. But yeah, just a wonderful. It's one of my favorites of his in general, and I think I have most of his, at least of the ECMs. A couple more here. Danzir, or Danzere, Jan Gabarek, Bobo Stenson Quartet. I absolutely love this album. In November of '75. Great quartet, kind of classic quartet here. It was actually Keith Jarrett's group, with Gabarek and Pal Danielson, Jan Christensen at the time. But they did Wichita Toe with the same group before this, which is probably more of an accessible, a diverse album. But this, again, for the emotional pull, this one really does it for me. I guess I'm a little biased too, in a personal way. The date, this is the exact month and year that I was born, which I don't even know if I noticed right away. But this music, kind of like the cover, there's a certain starkness to it, and again, with that kind of ECM melancholy and the kind of autumnal feel to it, just has a certain magic to it, which could never quite explain. I get it, for the first track alone, the title cut, it's worth it for me. Just the way it gradually builds. It kind of comes to a certain crescendo and then just kind of dies down again. But just another beautiful album. Probably better examples for some of Gabarek and Stenson's work, but this is just another one that just kind of just tugs at me for some reason. And finally here, and another album I know Gary's a big fan of, Ralph Towner, Blue Sun. Again, another beautiful atmospheric, very much like the cover. Completely solo work by Towner from 1982. You can see he plays all the instruments here. And as Gary pointed out, I don't think he ever made an album in which he, the multi-instrumentalism came out to such a degree. But just very beautiful, very emotional, impressionistic. It fits all those terms which I probably use a little too often. But I just love the whole feel of this album, just the way all the pieces flow together. Even CT Kangaroo, which is kind of an oddball, whimsical piece on the album, that somehow kind of adds a little levity to the album, which at times it gets again quite melancholy. But I have the CD of this also, and it's one of those which I would just put on repeat and just let it play throughout an evening or an afternoon, and just I never get tired of it. I think it's for me personally, one of the better of his kind of late to mid period work, or at least post 70s, which of course I love all of those, and with Oregon, but just another really beautiful one. So you talk about ECM, there's so many terms that come up. We talk about the aesthetic, the kind of melancholy, atmospheric, but there's so much variety in all of these, and these are just albums that I've returned to over the years, and some may or may not be favorites as much as others, but I can just listen to them endlessly. And of course, again, I could do one of these every week for the next few months and come up with something a little different each time. So that'll do it for now, and I'm sure I'll do future ECMs, but I was just inspired by Fred to do this, so thanks again, Fred, for doing this. It's never any shortage of ECM to be shown or to be appreciated, so thank you for that, and hope you all enjoyed, and until next time, peace, love, and joy.